Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio, or if you've been here before, welcome back. So, I'm going to get started on my project, but before I say any more about what I'm doing, I just wanted to say a very big thank you to everyone that left a comment on my taking a break video, or who dropped me a message just saying, to enjoy my break and that kind of thing. Honestly, I just kind of ran out of steam towards the end of last year. But, thanks for all your good wishes. So here we go, the first project of the year for the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group, and I'll leave a link to the group in the description box below. Now I'm going to speed this up a bit because I've got a lot of footage to get through today. So I have here a bit of packaging, and what I'm trying to do is to take that kind of thick bit off. There was a piece of the folder I'd already removed that would have acted as a flap to go round. I think a book or something had come in this. So I was taking off both that strip but also trying to get the labels off, although that wasn't as easy. And what I'm doing now is I'm using some basic PVA glue. I'm going to put it all over this cover, this piece of cardboard, and then what I'm going to do is lay down a piece of wet strength tissue paper, and I'll take my brayer and I'll really get that attached. I'm not concerned at all if there's any wrinkles in it, and in fact texture on it will be good. I just want to make sure that it is fully adhered. And I'll do that to both the outside of the cover, the inside, and indeed to the flap. Now this wet strength tissue paper is made by Carnival. I actually got it from Amazon, but I've discovered that it's available direct from Carnival, and it's actually much cheaper, even allowing for shipping, it's much cheaper direct from them. And I will leave a link below. Now it's a little fiddly in places, but that's okay. I just used scissors to roughly cut it where I needed to, and really just took my time to get this done. Putting the tissue paper down wasn't essential, but for me this just created a nice base layer for what I was going to do next. And I wanted to really get it well adhered to the cardboard because I want the lines of the cardboard to show through, because that will give me some texture on my finished piece. So our first prompt for the year in the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group is to make a Flowish journal. It was Rosemary Morris, another YouTuber, that came up with the idea of the Flowish journal, and I'll leave a link to Rosemary's channel below. But the idea is based around the Flow magazine, the annual one that comes out, designed for paper lovers. Quite expensive, and I think especially with shipping very expensive, but the idea is you collect materials in this journal to use in other projects. Some people swap them. What we're suggesting this year is you make something that you can then draw on throughout the year. If you don't want to do a journal like this, you could in fact do a box, so a box for collage pieces or anything of that sort. I want my folder to be able to take some pieces of standard letter size paper, that is A4 size paper, flat, because there's some pieces that I don't want to actually fold up at this stage because I want to do more work on them. But I also want to make a flap for the right hand side just to help hold some things in. I had already taken that flap off and used it for something else. So I've taken another piece of scrap card. I folded it not quite in half because I want to create a little flap that I can attach it to the main folder, and what I'm going to do is glue this together just to make it a bit stronger. Just going back to my actual folder itself, having put the tissue paper down, that actually helped act to strengthen the cardboard because it was a bit floppy in places, especially on the spine. So giving this a good coat, I'm using the 3-in-1 glue now because I find that PVA takes a long time to dry. My actual cover I had to leave to dry overnight. Once glued, I fold it over. I take a bone folder to make sure it's fully secured, and especially along that edge there next to the little flap, I want to make sure that that's not going to open up again, and then I leave it to dry. Now while it's drying, I get on with starting to paint. So I've got here bleached sand in Americana, a Pebeo dark taupe, and I think this is a Pebeo powder grey. So, you know, obviously it's the sort of thing you can use any colour, and I'm also going to use some gesso, but I am going to mix them just right there and on the piece of cardboard. I want it kind of not a flat colour, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't all blend fully. This really, for the front anyway, is just a base colour, although it will be the final colour for the inside. Although at some point I might go back and do some more work on it. I'm dry brushing this for two reasons. One, I want it to dry quite quickly, but two, I also want to see some of the ribs on the cardboard still through this. So although I blobbed the paint down and onto the cardboard, I am spreading it out quite thinly, but you know, at the same time I do want to make sure that it's fully covered, and I do just start to dry it off with a heat tool. I'm not concerned about the label or the barcode showing through, because on this side I'll be doing more work anyway on top of the base coat. And I also use the same colours just to paint over that little extra flap that I'm going to attach as well. So here we are, everything painted. So I want to decorate my folder by using some stencils on it, and I want to put one on this flap to begin with before I attach it. And here I've got the Swirly, Swirling, Swirlz by PM Artist Studio, and I'll leave a link to their YouTube channel and to their website in the description box below, as well as a link to the video in which I previously showed a number of their stencils. So I have mixed some of that powder grey along with some black. I want it just a little bit darker than my base colour here, because I want it to have a slightly faded look. I didn't want it to be standout black. So just going to do that whole section here with that particular stencil. And I just love how that turned out, just perfect for that flap. So there it is, Swirly, Swirling, Swirlz. Next stencil I'm going to use is All My Exes Came From Texas, and I'm going to decorate the other flap that folds from the bottom up with this one. And like the other one, I'm going to use a mix of the powder grey and the black. Again, I love how this turns out, and I do a second row above that, just the exact same. That's hairs coming out my stencil brush there that I have to keep clearing off. And there we go. So loving the way that looks. It just means that the flaps look just that little bit different. So now again I'm taking the Lattice stencil by PM Artist Studio. Same colour, but this time I am going to put some decoration onto the front of the cover. I'm going to do this in a few places, and some of this will get covered over with my next layers, because as I said, on this side this is just a base layer for more colours going on top. Once that's done, I get out my gel plate because I want to add some colour to the front of the cover. Now, I don't want this to be solid blocks of colour, so really all I'm going to do is put some colour down on the plate, and then I will just press the folder down. So I've got quinacridone violet here, just going to do a very thin layer, because I guess the kind of look I'm looking for is a kind of worn paint type look, but with some different sort of colours. So just spreading it out very thinly on my gel plate there, and just pressing it down here and there on the cover, just picking up colour in different places. And I just keep doing that all over, and in a moment I will add in a couple of other colours. Not wasting any, of course. So here I've got quinacridone nickel azo gold, and I'm going to start adding some of this to the cover as well, and the exact same process. And this also helps the stenciling that I've done on the front to blend in a bit as well, and I think those colours just all go really nicely together with that base and then the other colours on top. So I've taken this butterfly off a gift bag, taken the quinacridone nickel azo gold and a quinacridone gold, they're two different makes, and just going to use both of these at different times. I just felt the butterfly on the other side was just not quite the right colour that I wanted, so I do this a couple of times. I add in a bit of the violet from earlier on, just trying to build up a colour. I want it to look a little bit more grungy than it was looking. Now this was glossy paper, so it was actually kind of rubbing off a bit, but again that was absolutely fine for my purpose. So I did a few layers and this is the result at this point, but just freeze framing here just so you can see that texture on the cover, and I think that looks great. So missed a bit of the filming here, but I'm using another stencil by PM Artist Studio called Stompy Rocks. I just wanted to decorate the inside of my cover just a little bit more. Now I'm back on the outside and all I've done is to take some white gesso and I'm just knocking back the colour here just a little bit in places. Again, just trying to give it that aged, kind of peeled paint look. And of course I couldn't help myself, I just had to get my hands in there and start spreading the gesso with my hands as well. So let's take another look at that luscious detail. I just love that. It really, the camera doesn't do it justice in many ways. Anyway, I next took some black stays on and I just start to go round all the edges. Now that pad actually had some, I think, sepia on it, but again, just looking for an aged look here, so it didn't matter that the two were mixed. And I go round the folder as well. I want to just put something along the edge of this because I don't want it opening up at any point, so just decided to add a little bit of washi tape, and then just to match it, I put some washi tape on the other flap as well. There's a nick out of that corner there, but I'm leaving it as is. At the end of the day, this is recycled, upcycled packaging, and it doesn't need to look perfect. So once I've got that done, I then I'm just marking roughly where I want it to go and just using more of that 3-in-1 glue just to attach the flap down and onto the folder, and I just bring it in a little bit from the edge. What I'm now doing is I've punched a couple of holes at the bottom, 2 at the top as well, and I'm putting some eyelets in there. And I was going to put some twine in to begin with, but I decided that elastic might be better because it would just be that bit stretchier. So I'm measuring out some elastic to go into each of the settings. I can't remember what thickness this is, or I think I just got it in Hobbycraft, but I don't have any details on it. That was another spool that I rolled it onto. Just tie both into knots and then I have the two there. I've now got this ribbon. It's a nice ribbon. I got this from Hobbycraft as well a while ago. I'm really trying to use up things that I've had sitting about for ages, and I'm just going to use some of this. I'm going to put a closure on it, top and bottom, just showing you roughly the size I've made it there, but obviously depending on the size of folder you use, if you're doing a folder, then you adjust it accordingly. And I'm just going to use the 3-in-1 glue to put these in place. So 2 on the front and 2 on the back. Not measuring it at all, just eyeballing it. And this should give me a good hold. And then as the folder is filled, I'll be able to just tie those together. Decided that the butterfly wasn't quite what I wanted, so I'm just using some black craft paint here. Again, this was a paint from Hobbycraft, from their own range, and I'm just going to fill in all this detail, and this took a little while. I wondered about giving it 2 coats, but I left it as 1 coat at the moment. I just look at it up against my folder, and I think the black on it is going to fit in with the black on the ribbons that I've added as a closure. Once that's done, I just take the 3-in-1 glue and put it in place. I did think about doing some stamping on this to put a kind of title on the folder, but at the moment I've changed my mind. I might go back and add that at another point. Now I think, well, it'd be good to have something to hold the flaps in place, so I decide to add some more elastic to it. Before I do that, I've got these 3 pockets left from a previous project, and I think these would be quite handy just to slip some little bits and pieces into. So just deciding here where to actually put them. I want them placed so that they're not going to, whatever's in it, that they won't fall out. I do think that one of these would be good to put on the outside edge of this folder, just at the other side of the flap there, and it could then fold out or into and on top of the flap just to hold bits and pieces in. But meantime, I've got these little 3, and I did come across another 3 later on that I will add to the other flap, but putting those on there meantime. Here I'm just thinking about how I'm actually going to put this into place, and I decide to use this black and gold baker's twine. Now initially I just glue it into place. What I want to be able to do is that any loose leaf things I have in here, so in other words things that don't go around the elastics, I just want to be able to make sure that they are secure. So initially I glue them in with the 3-in-1 glue, but you see that later on I actually decide to use the Tim Holtz mini stapler thing just to make sure that they're not going to pull off. So I've now taken out some pages from a 12x12 paper pack. This one came from B&M here in the UK ages ago. So I'm going to fold them one way, fold them both the same way, and then I'm just going to make a little pocket at the bottom, and then I'll glue these in because I'm going to put these around the elastics just to have little pockets in which to store things that are maybe that little bit smaller. And here I am, I'm just going back to those strings and just actually stapling them in just to make them more secure. So it's now time to start filling the folder. So I'll put those little pockets in, one on each of the elastics. I've got some cards for recycling, some close tags, labels that can go in my little pockets there, and at some point I'll be using those. I'm looking at this as being very much like a kind of resource folder. Index cards, I'll put some of those into the pockets, and you know, I might go back and reorganise this at some point. These were alphabet stickers. You can see I've used some of them but not very many, so when I was going through looking at what I might put in here, I thought I'm going to pull out some things that have sat about for such a long time, hardly ever being used, and I'm going to get them in here and hope that over the course of this year I will use these in my folder. Now I will add to the folder if I come across things that I think I might want to use during the course of the year. I will add things. There might be some things that I won't use, but you know, I've had a lot of things sitting about for a long time, so I'm going to try and use those this year. I'm back almost on my junk use it or lose it type crusade. Lots of leaflets that I've picked up here and there, maps, all going to go in here. They're not all vintage things, but you know, it doesn't matter, they may come in handy for some things. So just fitting them in and around those elastics at this point, or putting them into the pockets. And I've also got a lot of these that might not sit well in the pockets. You could be folded around the elastics. Certainly the smaller things go into pockets, but some pieces I want to keep kind of flat because I want to maybe do some more gel printing on them. So some of these larger pieces I'm just going to put in at the front there, and just going to use those elastics just to secure them in place. Sorry, that's not elastic this time, that's baker's twine. Now my Flowish journal, my resource folder, filled up really quickly, but let's take a quick look at it. So there you can see it, it's already bulking up. I've still got room for some other things, but you can see the spine there with the 2 elastics down. Might do some more decorating, I might put some words on the front, I'm not sure. But there's how it's held together with my butterfly ribbons. And I think that's going to hold it quite securely. It could stand up or it could be just left flat. When I open it up, I've got that flap there at the front. And I've got that nicely secured in place. Now I'm going to add in one other thing just before I finish. You can see the various things that I've put around the elastics. Those will be held fairly securely in place. There's envelopes, there's music pages, there's recycled paper bags, there's maps, there's this, there's that, and in the back section here I've put some napkins in that I have. I don't use napkins all that often, and that's partly because I often think I don't have many, and then I found some in a box when I was going through things that might possibly go in here. I've got tons of other stuff. I could make 100 of these folders and they still wouldn't be filled, but I've got this all nicely together rather than it being in lots of different places. And again, got the strings there that I can just tie together to keep it in place. Now I suddenly remembered that I had come across a stencil that I got. It's a Tim Holtz stencil, and I got it from Julie from the Green Macaroni channel a few years ago, and I thought I had misplaced it. I knew I wouldn't have lost it, but it was definitely misplaced. So again I thought, well, a couple of stencils in this resource folder that can just be used, and I'll leave a link to the Green Macaroni channel below. I'm not sure that she's making as many videos these days, but I'm going to link to it anyway. So that is my resource folder, my Flowish Style Journal. I've left lots of links for you below. I hope you enjoy making something like this. I'll leave a link to Nina's video below as well. So here's to a good and creative year for us all. Bye for now.